Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're super excited that we're going to have a new guest today on our video. Just to mention again, like we're the Lee County Ready for College initiative, and in general, we talk about videos such as like about writing essays and kind of the college admissions. But in general, we're trying to move away from that and kind of talk more about the first year experience and things to expect when you're moving towards what do I do once I'm in first year and common mistakes that we've made in the past. So yeah, in this video, we'll actually be talking about sports, not necessarily watching sports, although we probably have some very, very biased people in this video, but more so about like sport playing on campus and what that entails like, and then also in general just some basic topics about wellness and things that we've overcome to make it work for us. So to start us off, we'll do introductions. Sosa, would you mind going first, please?
Yeah, hi guys. So my name is Sosie Bowman. I'm a senior at the Better Blue University, UNC Chapel Hill. I am a psychology major on the pre-medical track, hopefully your future position. And my favorite sport to watch is kind of both college football and basketball.
Hi everyone, my name's Kyra Bolden. I am a rising senior at Guilford College and I'm double majoring in Spanish and International Studies. My favorite sport to play is volleyball, of course, but my favorite sport to watch is lacrosse.
And hi everyone, as usual, my name is Steven Tenorio. I attend Duke and I'm studying a mixture of statistics, sociology, and German. And I guess my favorite sport to watch, as it might be surprising to some, is gymnastics. It's really, really cool to watch. I don't know why anyone wouldn't watch it, in particular women's gymnastics. It's exciting. And yeah, and I'm super excited to introduce our guest, Dr. Kyra Kendrick. I'll let her introduce herself.
Thank you, Stephen. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Kyra Kendrick, and I am currently the Director of On-Campus Recruiting and External Relations at the Better Blue University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And I actually went to undergrad at the University of Louisville. So for those who are considering going there, I'd highly, highly recommend it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kendrick. And just before we go into our video, I'm going to do a quick disclaimer. So basically, just want to remind everyone the Lee County Ready for College initiative is just a group of college students coming together, helping other students learn more about the college admissions process and beyond. We are not paid professionals to do this, and we are just doing this on a voluntary basis. So with that, we'll go ahead and start off with our first topic today, which is about the athlete's perspective. So Kyra, could you describe a little bit more about what the recruiting perspective looked like for you in general when you were considering schools and which sport you were interested in doing?
Yeah, definitely. So playing volleyball in college was kind of important, but it wasn't a number one top priority. When I was looking for schools that had to do with volleyball where I would be able to participate, I really wanted to get to know the team. So I did several overnights and I went to a couple of games just to witness the atmosphere. I wanted to learn about campus life as well, which is super important from the perspective of an athlete. I wanted to know about our schedule and our conference and what traveling looked like. Majority of athletes in various sports teams get recruited in high school by participating in club sports, which usually attend like countrywide tournaments or university camps or showcases. For volleyball, I went to tournaments like Big South in Atlanta, AAU in Orlando, and even nationals. So that's really important if you plan on or have the intent to play a sport in college, because it's a lot easier for college coaches and recruiters to see multiple potential athletes in one large setting.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for explaining that, Kyra. And just in general, just to remind everyone, like what we are trying to give is more of a perspective for students that are, kind of on the fence whether they want to play a sport at a more competitive athletic perspective rather than more recreational. So Kyra, which is it's awesome having you on the team because we get that perspective. And I think a lot of students from Sanford and Lee County in general are still on the fence whether they want to, attend a school for its athletics program, while also at the same trying to prioritize their education. So with that being said, Kyra, could you explain a little bit more, for students that are considering like what a day in the life of college looks like for you?
Yeah, so because I play volleyball and that's a fall sport, we usually arrive on campus a couple days because I'm a D3 school, so we're a lot smaller, but a couple days earlier than first years and returning students. So we'll have preseason, which is us just getting ready for conference play, and that usually involves 2 practices a day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, with lunch in between, and time for us to bond and get to know each other. And then during regular season, depending on the sport, but for me specifically in volleyball, we are scheduled to have practices when a majority of the team can make a majority of the time period scheduled for our practices. And so usually our practices are in the afternoon because a lot of our athletes on the team are either like education majors or whatever, so they're doing a lot of work throughout the day. In the afternoon, we'll have lunch, classes, study hall, which is not a requirement except for first years. And then in the evening, we'll do practice and then dinner usually.
Yeah, I still can't believe like kind of the experiences that like students have on top of academics that they have to worry about. I mean, that is what you signed up for, but also at the same time, it's like, dang, I have to do school too also. So that's really impressive. Thanks for sharing, Kyra. So now we're going to hear a little bit more from Dr. Kendrick, who will talk a little bit more about the other side of what that looks like. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and talk more about your background, kind of your current role, and then just those duties and experiences. More also about a day in the life of what that looks like for you too.
So I was not a student athlete. However, I, like Sosa, volunteered in the football office at Louisville. The rules were very different when I was in college. They have completely transformed. But I volunteered in the football office. I was afforded the opportunity to go to LSU for grad school and work with the football team there, which was major for me because I was like, yes, big time football. And then I've hopped around a few other universities. But before I moved over to working in recruiting full time in the football office, I actually started out as an academic counselor for student athletes. So a lot of what the other Kyra is talking about with the study halls and having a very structured schedule sounds all too familiar. Those are definitely things to consider when you're thinking about being a student athlete. Your time isn't always your own. And so if you're okay with that sacrifice, then, I firmly believe that you should go ahead and, proceed forward. In my current role, it's a lot of, I think when people hear recruiting, they think that, I get to go to high school student athletes' homes and schools, but that's usually, especially for football and mostly all sports, I would say, that's usually an actual coach that's going to come in the home and go to the school. I more so deal with what's their experience like when they get to campus. So very similar to what the other Kyra said about coming in, seeing what the travel schedule looks like, seeing what the buildings look like, meeting with professors and academic counselors, and what are all the resources that we can offer student athletes. That is more my area in planning that entire thing. So that's really big for me. I am basically a glorified event planner, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. My experiences though have been wonderful. I think it's always great to watch, a young man or a young woman basically come to college and kind of fulfill this life goal of pushing and going into the realm of higher education because they may be the first, they may be the only, all of those things, and to see the drive to say, I'm going to be willing to do studies and do sports. It's always awesome to me.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you brought that up. I think oftentimes, especially students from Sanford and Lee County, it is overwhelmingly students that are first generation low income, like it's an avenue for students to figure out a way, how can I, move myself up in a socioeconomic status? How can I, uplift my family out of poverty in some of these conversations that we often hear in some of these stories? I know that tends to be a common thread with students like from Sanford and Lee County, but it's so important that we have individuals in the recruiting sphere that are making sure that these students are successful, not only within sports and athletics, but in addition to that, their education, their housing, just in general, the overall experience. So with that being said, Sosa, can you explain a little bit more about the work that you've been doing, like with Dr. Kendrick, and kind of that role that you have at UNC?
Yeah, so
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sosa.
My involvement with Carolina football began when I was a sophomore in college. It was pretty unexpected. So I'm an admissions ambassador at my university. So I give tours to prospective students and their families. And the football program needed help in order for some student ambassadors to be able to give tours of the stadium and campus when needed. And so from that is kind of how I got involved with Carolina football. I've been fortunate. I've been there since sophomore year. So I've been there pre-Mac Brown and been there since the beginning of the Mac Brown. And it's been an incredible thing to watch. Becoming more involved with football has been very interesting because at first I kind of questioned my role there, seeing as how I am a pre-med student and you don't typically find a pre-med student in the stadium. And I've just kind of find a way to kind of intersect my experiences with football and my journey as a doctor. Benefits I receive is I get to watch these guys kind of practice sometimes and just their experiences, and you're kind of watching the human body in a high pressure situation and kind of how it interacts and how it recovers. So I've been able to witness that. And then also just being able to network as well and develop connections. I'm able to have access to team doctors there if I have questions and kind of am interested in getting more involved with professional sports medicine or college sports medicine. I have that access. So that's kind of been my journey. And then I also I actually work directly with Dr. Kendrick. I've been fortunate enough to be under her this past year, so that's why I'm really kind of excited to have her on this video. I assist her with any of her administrative duties that go into campus recruiting. We brainstorm together, and then we also help with the execution of certain events as needed and within our parameters, because it takes a lot to put on some events for football. It takes a whole crowd. And so it's not even just me. There is other student ambassadors and student office assistants that work together as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Sosa, for sharing that. So I guess, it's really important also when we're talking about, working within up and higher education in kind of the spaces that, we're permitted or not permitted to be in, and how much we can take up some of that space, especially with more of our intersectional identities. I guess in general, I think it's super important that students are also considering the higher education sphere and what that space would look like for them, because in general we can talk about these topics all day, but Dr. Kendrick, could you share a little bit more about your experiences, the hardships, kind of in your general what made you continue pursuing that position that you're in, which I feel seems very, very difficult to be in, and just in general, any additional information that you think could kind of help round that out for students that are considering this pathway?
It's ironic because, again, as someone who wasn't a student athlete, my desire and my passion to give back to them has almost come full circle. For me in particular, I was once upon a time the only Black woman working in my office. I'm not necessarily the only person who looks like me because there's always Black coaches and things like that, but it is definitely a male-dominated space. And so just trying to find your way through that along with trying to bring people with you, gets difficult. You're trying to carve out a space for people so that, when and if I ever leave UNC, they have no issues with saying, okay, I know I need to make sure I hire somebody just like Kyra. So that part definitely gets difficult. However, I feel like it's necessary. It's one of those types of things where representation matters. So while, you know, most of the kids, I'm not technically old enough to be their mother. I'm not that old, but it definitely gives the moms, especially, a sense of comfort knowing that there's somebody there who is going to look past and look beyond the athletic ability and say, okay, what is my son going to need when he gets there that's outside of football? And for me, that's huge. I love that piece. You know, I'm not a mother currently, but I definitely feel like more of a big sister to a variety of student athletes, male and female, just in that role in particular.
Yeah, no, I think, for students that are still on the fence, that's great to hear. And something I think, students should take away, like when they're thinking about, how many, like who is involved with the recruiting, who's involved with, in those spaces that are not only making sure that my athletics program is going well, but also that are going to make sure that I'm on track, to graduate and have all my academic and extracurricular activities, checked off. Because at the end of the day, everyone needs to get a job or whatever they want to do on post grad, which I think is super, super, super important. So kind of, moving forward from this, Dr. Kendrick, I want to ask you, what was your best or favorite experience that you've had in general, just working with athletics? And feel free to talk about that in whatever capacity, whether it's academic ability or, more of those, I guess, like winning football experiences.
I would definitely say winning is always great. When you win, everybody's happy. Everybody's walking through the office with smiles the next week. When you lose, it's definitely not like that. I am always a supporter of winning, not just because of that, but it also helps benefit the entire program and everybody who touches it. So that for me is always a positive. But my favorite memory is probably watching particular student athletes graduate. I think when people get to college, you're trying to discover who you are and figure out your identity. And that can be very overwhelming. And so oftentimes I've seen student athletes who've given up, but then turned back around and said, you know what, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to do exactly what I said I came here to do. And that piece is just so, so rewarding. Like there's no feeling like knowing that you helped someone achieve one of their goals that they are, set out to achieve, specifically the graduation piece, especially with the first gens. And even those who aren't first gen, I went to college and my parents went to college, but everybody goes through turmoil. Everybody's going to go through the ups and downs. And so just seeing them get to the finish line is major. Probably my favorite.
I hope I get to graduate too. Not sure what that's going to look like next year. But yeah, I think that's a wonderful moment for students, and that you get to experience that. And yeah, in general, I think, we tend to forget like what really we're at college and what we're trying to do there. It's a very personal moment. It's a very personal experience. And oftentimes, like, I don't know, I would be overwhelmed if I was a student athlete. And because at the end of the day, people forget UNC is hard too. Like, it's not an easy school. Like it's just incredible. So could you talk a little bit more about, what were your favorite experiences, working with Dr. Kendrick and in general with the UNC football program?
Yes. So the immediate memory and favorite experience that I have off the bat is we had a photo shoot going on, and one of our coaches, our wide receivers coach, did the In My Feelings challenge. And I kind of just at that point for me felt most a part. That was where I began to feel part of the Carolina football family that, we talk about a lot in the office space. Especially because like previously I was struggling with, do I stay and continue working, or what is my place and what is my role in the stadium? Because I was going through like, am I wasting my time because I'm pre-med, or is this just another thing, another form of development that I can continue to cultivate before I graduate as a student? So that was a moment where I've started to feel part of the family. Now I'm so comfortable in the stadium. I think it's a really great thing that I can go up to one of the coaches and not feel intimidated. They know who I am. They'll check up on me and how I'm doing, especially in school. They make sure that I'm doing well. And that's something that I really found important and helped me find my place in the stadium and be encouraged to stay, was because they made sure that I felt comfortable as well, just because I was in the space, and that I wasn't just another worker, was that I was actually some part of the team, because we do like work in the same spaces on a lot of our occasions. So I would say definitely that. And then of course, there are like cool things my friends ask me about whenever I'm working. So there have been times Kyra and I will go and we'll ride golf carts and go places. I think it's cool if I'm like flexing on my friends. We're riding through campus on a golf cart, or if I see one of the graduate assistants riding on a golf cart, because I know who they are, they'll stop and talk to me or like say hey to me. It's kind of just like having those small things. It's like a nice little, flex, but it's also just really cool that I have that. Um, and so yeah, then also like they remember small events as well. I had like some parts and were willing to come to an event on campus. They were ready and willing to come to an event that I was supposed to be a part of before coronavirus took effect and unfortunately had to be canceled. So just like that support system is also there, and then like that family aspect, and that really just encouraged me to move forward. That's been my favorite part, and it's something I'll really take away from my college experience.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Like, I also want everyone that's watching this to, know that like as we're talking about through these videos, like we're also learning more about each other like throughout the summer. Like I didn't know Sosa was doing that. And now I'm thinking like, oh my God, what can this girl like not do? Like she's pre-med, she does research, and now I didn't even know this part of her life. So I just think that's cool. I'm like just overwhelmed. Like Sosa, you're awesome. And so actually, I think that's a perfect segue into our final thing that we'll be talking about for our video, is in general wellness and what that looks like, especially, with all of these things that we have going on in college. I think, we're all like really successful and we can talk about this, for days. But in general, like, I think it's good if we could all go around and just talk about our own personal experiences with wellness and what that looks like. So with that being said, Kyra, can you go ahead and talk about a little bit like for you, like what is wellness, and in general, like how do you balance like academics, the social life, and oftentimes like also being really active, and then sorry, this is just a long-winded, just kind of describing your routine as well.
Gotcha. Yeah. So there are so many different aspects of wellness that being in a college campus, a college space in general, we all need to be really aware of and take care of. I will say for me, being a part of an athletic team does help a lot with the physical aspect of wellness. However, like I mentioned earlier, there are other areas of campus to assist with mental and emotional wellness. Wellness is especially important when at college, because for many students, it's their first time living on their own. So being a student and keeping up with a daily routine can be extremely overwhelming. I do know that most colleges and universities offer counseling of some sort, but having a reliable core group of friends is also really important, and it can be a lot easier to confide in them. My priorities in this order, I think, are school, self-wellness, which includes rest, my contentment with myself, and then also like managing my stress levels, and then volleyball and the social life. While my physical health is extremely important to me, because I'm a student athlete, I do also have to keep in mind that I'm also in a very challenging academic environment. So there have been sacrifices that I've had to make with both academics and athletics. But I think finding the balance in that is what helps me with my wellness.
Thanks, Kyra. Sosa, can you talk a little bit more about, kind of those things that are brought up, wellness, what that looks like for you, and then kind of that routine.
Yeah, so for me, what I learned, and it took me longer to learn, is that you can't generalize what wellness looks like across everyone. Because I know that at the beginning of college, for at least my first 2 years, I was kind of just trying to, take everyone's advice for sure on how they did wellness, but I wasn't taking the time to develop my own form of wellness. I was just kind of trying to like piece together what other people were doing, and it wasn't working for me. So for me, my wellness kind of started when I actually started taking like my fitness journey more seriously, which was January 2019. And so from that, what I learned is that when I actually feel better about myself and how I'm doing, I do better in other aspects of my life. Because when I work out, it's kind of like an accomplishment that I've done something for the benefit of my physical body, and I feel at least a little bit more organized and can do other aspects of my life. I've always utilized a planner for work and school, and then extra time for myself. My college campus life, I have to balance 2 jobs, academics, and volunteer services, extracurriculars, and somehow find time to sleep. So I have to use a planner. I use a planner, and then I also use the calendar on my iPhone to alert me because I'm also a forgetful person. So that's kind of my way of trying to like balance everything. But then I've also just found that sometimes when we think of like self-care, I've learned that sometimes my forms of wellness don't necessarily always have to be by myself. I found that if I'm in a setting with like my friends, we're all just not necessarily worried about school and we're not stressing, we're just together and we're having good times, laughing, things like that. Those are moments, I call them at peace moments. And they're moments when I feel my best. I feel like I can move forward, do anything I need to do because I now have this memory with my friends of when, despite everything that we've been going through, we're still able to come together and laugh about a funny story. So that's another form that I've found. And then another thing I've developed more in the pandemic has been journaling. I have like been off and on about journaling so much throughout my entire life. And it's because I hate writing. But for some reason, if you lock me in my house for 3 months, I have a lot to say. So I have been journaling a lot since I believe I started it in like March. And that's mostly just the outlet I found. I kind of make note to journal specifically when I'm at like a high emotional point, whether it's happy, sad, stressed, whatever, because I find that I have a lot to say during those moments. And as someone who like sometimes struggles with expressing those things, that's just been my outlet, and it's actually helped with my development in expressing those things to other people. So I recommend it, especially if you struggle with the same things that I do. It's definitely helped. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Sosa. And with what Kyra and Sosa both said, I think are super valuable, like personal experiences. But I would love to hear from Dr. Kendrick. You know, you have a lot more knowledge in this, and probably have witnessed several accounts of like personal experiences with trying to find this balance. Could you kind of talk a little bit more about like those general strategies and what that looks like as someone, in that position?
Even now, I still struggle with work-life balance. So while I'm not thankful for the COVID-19, it definitely helped like pause me and say, okay, we need to look at these other personal things that you're trying to do in your life. So it was necessary. It was necessary. So my 3 things, I definitely am an avid reader. I was not when I was in college. I became one, and I encourage every person who wants to grow or just learn more information to read. Everything that you want to know can be found in a book. And if not there, follow particular things on your Twitter feed if you have Twitter. I made it a point once I started investing my money to follow Bloomberg so I can know where my money is going. Educate yourself, through other platforms outside of just like a hard copy book. I, like Sosa, also started journaling. And very similar to her, I consider myself an extrovert. So being around people, even if not physically, through Zoom, through FaceTime, is something that helps rejuvenate me. and kind of just brings me back to life because I know that I can be my true authentic self with those people that I'm talking to. And sometimes when you're in certain spaces, that may not necessarily be the case. So I definitely encourage you to have a circle who will be there for you when you need them, and vice versa. And then I too also work out. It makes me feel better. I honestly don't enjoy it, but I do it because when I look in the mirror, I'm thankful, I'm happy. And it's so vain. That's so vain. I will acknowledge that. But at 33, I'm like, okay, my metabolism is about to start slowing down, so I got to get on it. So I do yoga though. That helps me get more center and be more mindful. Especially when my mind is going 1,000 miles a minute thinking about 20 different things. Yoga is probably my favorite. I do enjoy yoga. I enjoy that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kendrick. I'm going to round out, I guess, talking a little bit more about my experiences and what that looks like. So I guess, I also want to address some of the things that like everyone has said already. Like, we are in a college environment. Like, this looks completely different before and after college, and I would even say the summers as well, depending on what you're doing. It's because it's a balance of like you're learning, you're surrounded by the opportunity to make mistakes. Like you have you'll never. I would say you will never be in a place like that again, where you're completely surrounded by just learning, and making mistakes as well. I think that's a huge component of learning. So, I think just readdressing the fact that like we're there to learn more about ourselves, what works for us, how that, twists and turns as like we, unfold things about ourselves that we've never learned about and what we enjoy doing, I know can be, worthwhile and at the same time challenging. So I guess for me, like I wrote on here that on a little script thing that like I keep a Google Calendar up to date. I'm gonna be real. I really don't. I would like to. I want to be the type of person to, but I kind of enjoy that chaotic energy of figuring out what my day is gonna look like, and I know that's not a strategy that everyone enjoys doing. I would say that sometimes I would sleep at 8 p.m. and on other days I would just not sleep. and I'm not recommending that for anyone, but I found it to work for me in some cases and how I want to balance those things. But like it has been mentioned by many other people, like it's completely different for how that works for you. And whatever advice we can give, like always take it with a grain of salt. Because your university program, whether you're a student athlete, that completely changes like that perspective and what that'll look like. Or if you're pre-med like Sosa, like that completely could change the way that you're going in a certain direction. But yeah, I just wanted to conclude by thanking everyone for sharing their personal experiences, advice, comments. Just I think it's been really worthwhile, especially Dr. Kendrick, having you on today. We're just so grateful that we could have you on our video and just giving more of those perspectives for students from Sanford and Lee County. So with that being said, thank you so much everyone for tuning in. If you want to reach out to any of us, feel free to email us and we'll give you more information, especially with Dr. Kendrick, who has been so gracious for being on this video with us. So thank you so much, everyone.